Welcome to the Vibrant Guide podcast, where we share stories of inspiring individuals who have turned their passions into successful ventures. I'm your host, Anna, and today we have a remarkable guest with us. Sydney Baker is a coach and speaker who transforms the lives of busy, driven entrepreneurs and creative professionals with ADHD. Since 2019, Cindy has been showing her clients how to work with their ADHD brains instead of fighting against them, helping them leverage their strengths and manage their challenges. With a master's degree in counseling and a background as an educator and counselor, Cindy founded Sydney Baker Coaching to help entrepreneurs tap into their creativity, channel their incredible energy, improve their focus, and take decisive action in their professional and personal lives. She has created a unique ADHD-friendly proven framework that allows people to go from chaos and overwhelm to peace and order, from distraction to purposeful action. Imagine waking up every day feeling calm, prepared, and focused, and going to bed every night knowing that you have reached your goals for the day. This is all possible with Sydney Baker Coaching. Today, we'll dive deep into Sydney's journey, her unique coaching approach, and valuable strategies for managing ADHD and achieving success. Welcome to the show, Sydney.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So just to start, can you start by telling us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, well, you covered a lot of it there. I'm an ADHD productivity coach, primarily for professionals, so adults. My background is working with students, but my coaching program is mainly for entrepreneurs and other creative type professionals. And I kind of help them go from overwhelm to being organized and using their time well so they can be successful.
Yeah, so you have a master's in counseling and a background as an educator, as you said. So how do these experiences shape your approach to coaching?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I worked as a school counselor for a while. And so I actually had a lot of students with ADHD, excuse me, and I worked with their parents as well. And I started to learn a lot about ADHD. And I thought, I think I have this. And so I ended up getting diagnosed as an adult. And so then I was just very curious to learn everything I could about adult ADHD. Excuse me. So, I read books and I went to workshops and did all the things to learn about adult ADHD. And I think being both counselor and educator, it's a great combination for a coach. Because a coaching takes more of a wellness, I don't know what you want to call it, a wellness approach, I guess. So instead of trying to fix people with things that are wrong with them, I'm able to kind of help them get unstuck, help them figure out why they're getting in their own way. And then, of course, as an educator, I'm able to communicate and break things down in bite-sized pieces. I always tell people if I can teach middle school kids, then I think you can understand me. So it helps to be able to draw on that background for sure.
So what inspired you to, be coaching entrepreneurs and creative professionals specifically with ADHD?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know if this is true, but I did read a statistic recently that over 50% of entrepreneurs have ADHD.
Wow.
That's true. That sounds very, very high to me, but it does kind of draw in the creative types, because ADHD people get bored easily. We're also typically pretty smart and creative, and so we like to try new things, and we're very driven. And so I like working with those kind of people. I like working, well, first of all, I can relate to them, and second of all, I like action takers. I like to work with people who are used to investing in themselves and their own personal development. I like the creativity. I think they're fun. So it's a great niche for me to target.
Yeah, for sure. And that statistic is amazing. Yeah, wow, I didn't know it was that high. But kind of just transitioning to your framework and approach. So you've developed a unique ADHD friendly framework. Can you give us an overview of what that kind of entails?
Yeah, of course, I can't go into all the details, it's too much, but there are four big mistakes that I see people making over and over again when it comes to ADHD. And so my framework actually targets those four mistakes and kind of offsets them. So the first one is really just not understanding ADHD, not understanding the impact, because it really does affect every part of your life. So I help people understand the neurological basis of it and how their brain works and all of that. And then kind of moving into self-acceptance and self-awareness. So we do assessments to learn strengths and weaknesses and triggers and challenges and really understanding yourself, and then being okay with the fact that you have ADHD is the first step, because then you can find strategies to overcome the challenges, and then you can figure out what your strengths are and really try to play to those strengths. Another big mistake is people with ADHD a lot of times have overwhelming thoughts and anxiety. And so the next step in my framework is to help people manage that sense of overwhelm and anxiety. And so we do some stress management training, things like that, to time management and all of that, to help people rein in that sense of overwhelm. And the third one is kind of the hallmark you would think of with ADHD, and that is focus and attention. And if you don't know how to be focused and pay attention, whether you have ADHD or not, you're not going to be successful, right? Because it's so important. So I have all kinds of research-based skills and strategies that I teach to help boost focus and attention. And it's all from an ADHD perspective, because of course I have ADHD. These are not just things that are in the book somewhere. These are things that work, that I've used. I'm sorry, I have a cold, so my voice is crazy. But things that work for me and my clients as well. So lots of things there that it's just too much to go into. But the other one that kind of goes along with focus and attention is poor organization and time management. Again, can't get organized and you can't manage your time. It's really going to hold you back. So we do a lot in that step of helping people set up systems and building new habits so they can manage their time and get organized. And then I'm adding a lot of bonus material on just some business tips, how to choose your niche, how to create an offer, that type of thing. And then there's a lot of other bonus things, like how to make decisions, how to handle your money, how to organize email, papers, all that stuff. So, but those are that's kind of the nutshell right there of the framework.
Great framework. Could you share a success story of how a framework has transformed someone's life?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I had one lady, Holly, who was trying to transition to working from home and set up a home. She needed to set up a home office. She was starting a business. I think it was real estate investing, I remember. And it's very different working from home. And if you have ADHD, it's really hard to kind of get that transition down from going to an office where you clock in and clock out, and then you're on your own, So I helped her set up a system so that she was organized and able to manage her time. I had another client, Doug, who has his own business that really wasn't able to meet deadlines. And so for him, we worked on how to manage his time in an ADHD-friendly way so he could meet all of his client deadlines. He had a lot of kind of last-minute things he was doing, and so that evened out. I could go on and on, but there's so many, and they all have different needs. And so that's one of the cool things, is I'm able to kind of tailor fit a solution to the individual. So everybody's needs are a little bit different.
Yeah, for sure. And I know you touched on people's needs being different, but what are the most common, challenges that entrepreneurs with ADHD face, and how do you help them overcome these common challenges?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Entrepreneurs have common challenges whether they have ADHD or not.
Right.
So I would say motivation to get things done. I just met with my coaching group earlier today, and that's one of the things we talked about. And we talk about how emotions and motivation are tied together. I always say waiting for motivation is never a good strategy. It's not just going to descend upon you, whenever you need it. So you have to be able to figure out how to work without feeling motivated. Prioritizing is another struggle. sometimes people with ADHD think everything is equally important at the same time. And so they struggle to figure out what to do first. And sometimes they spend too much time on something that isn't as important. And of course, that just goes along with time management. Time management is a huge challenge, I think, for entrepreneurs. And we have a lot of training on that. We go kind of a deep dive into things you've probably heard of, like time blocking and the Pomodoro method and things like that. I think entrepreneurs kind of overthink things sometimes. So they have sort of the analysis paralysis. And, so sometimes that leads to procrastination because they want everything to be perfect before they get started. And so we work on I have a phrase, done beats perfect, how to get over the perfectionism and the overthinking and get started. I think, a lot of entrepreneurs have what we call imposter syndrome, where they just don't have the confidence that they need. They think they compare themselves to other people. So they think, well, I should be better off than I am, or I'm not as qualified as I should be to charge this amount or whatever. That's just a matter of building confidence and helping people to get over the mental roadblocks to that it's okay to charge money to help people. That's okay. It's okay to make a living, which was a paradigm shift for me, going from being a teacher where I was just in a helping profession and you make the same amount, whether you're a good teacher or not, really trying to provide the value and then charging for that. I think the last thing I can think of is entrepreneurs are really vulnerable to burnout. And so one of the things that in that time management piece of my framework we talk about is getting overcommitted in your schedule. And why do we do that? Like people pleasing and things like that. And how do we avoid that? That's a lot. I mean, I could think of more, but we have a lot of challenges.
Yeah, then those are all great strategies to overcome the challenges. I know there's also a lot of, strengths associated with ADHD, specifically with entrepreneurship. How do you help clients leverage those strengths instead of, actively working against their ADHD?
Yeah, and that's one of the hallmarks of my program. I'm in some other so-called support groups, Facebook groups and things like that, and it's just a big whine fest. All they want to do is, oh, my life is ruined because I have ADHD. Nobody understands me. And, I just laid on the couch all day and ate potato chips. And it's because of my ADHD. I'm like, no, I really think my belief is that everyone was created on purpose for a purpose.
Right.
And I'm a person of faith. And I really do believe that. Mm-hmm. And I think that we all have some reason that we were designed the way that we are. And a ADHD brain is not an excuse for a lack of success. And so I really do try to help people. Yes, they need to understand their challenges so I can help them with it. But they also need to quit living there, if you know what I mean. They need to be able to say, yes, these are my challenges, but these are my strengths. And so we have a phrase in my coaching program called the 3P power. And the 3Ps are positive, prepared, productive. And so the positive is huge. And I really am big on that. I don't think that the world owes us anything. I think that we can be just as successful as anyone else. And a lot of times, some of our strengths give us a competitive edge. Like for instance, you've probably heard the term hyper-focus, where somebody just loses track of time and they just hone in on something they're really interested in. Well, if you can channel that, in the right direction and figure out how to manage your time and really use that, then you can achieve success that other people can only dream of, So that's just one example. But one of the things that I like to do, we don't have time on this podcast, but I like to name famous people that are successful with ADHD and use them as examples. And we're in the middle of the Olympics, the time that you're interviewing me. I don't know when this will air. Simone Biles has ADHD, and so does Michael Phelps. And, one of the things that they have talked about in interviews is how they were able to rely on the strengths of their ADHD to really be able to hyper-focus on what needs to happen, channel all their energy into workouts, and all of that kind of stuff. So anyone who says you can't be disciplined with ADHD just needs to look at those two examples. So I don't know if that answered your question, but it's something I'm very passionate about is focusing on the positive.
Yeah, no, I love that approach, focusing on the positive, leveraging your strengths. So kind of just diving deeper into what your coaching sessions are. What does a typical coaching session of yours look like?
Yeah, so the coaching program is kind of a hybrid of different things. So it's not just meeting with me on Zoom, although that's part of it. Members have access to kind of a knowledge base or member portal, excuse me, with all kinds of recorded training. And so that's sort of the self-paced part. They also have access to a VIP Facebook group that's only for members, and they can interact there. On the Zoom calls, we typically, first of all, I keep it small. So, if the program gets really big, I break it into more than one group. So I want everybody to feel like they get a chance to share. And we typically do like a mini training. Like today, it was about motivation and boredom and ADHD. And that sort of serves as a discussion starter. And then each person goes around and they kind of report on the past week, and they talk about any challenges they had, and we try to troubleshoot obstacles that kept them from meeting their goals. And then they set intentions for the next week, which is why we're meeting on Monday, because it just is a great time to set intentions for the week. And so write those down, and then I hold them accountable. Gentle accountability, but hold them accountable. So it's kind of a combo. It really just depends on what people say as to what direction it goes. But everyone gets to share a struggle and a win from the previous week and set a goal for the next week. That part's pretty consistent every time.
Yeah, that sounds like a great approach. So how do you measure success and progress with your clients?
Yeah, well, any kind of personal development, it's a little different than numbers, So, part of it is just self-reporting, but also that accountability piece. So did they reach their goals from last week? And if not, did they try to figure out why and pivot, The first part of the program, I help people build new habits and new routines in their life so that things kind of become automatic, just like, you brush your teeth, you don't really think, I got to brush my teeth, I got to remember to brush my teeth. No, you just do it, So how automatic are those things? And that's one of the things we look at. Now, sometimes people will come in with specific needs, like they need to manage their time better. So then that we can look at specific things like, did you write in your planner every day this week? Did you prioritize your top 3 things that you need to do each day? Some people have made more money while they're in the program, or gotten a new, things like that are very measurable, where you can say, well, they were so unorganized they couldn't find their bills. And now, they're able to stick to a budget because they're organized. So it looks different for each person, but there's also, in the recorded part, each video, there's a little workbook that goes with it, and each video has an action step. So I can also ask, what video did you watch? Are you in the portal? Are you doing that? And then what did you take the one action step? So I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah, no, that's great. So I'm just curious, what mindset shifts do you think are essential for entrepreneurs to succeed?
Well, there's a lot. I would say one would be growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. And you hear that a lot, but a lot of times people hear it and they just sort of tune it out. But it's so important, because if you think that because you struggle with something now that you always will, then you're never going to better yourself. Always opportunities for growth, and if you always believe that you can improve, and you get feedback and stick with it, then you can be open to learning continuously. So that's one. I think resilience is really important. That can help entrepreneurs, stay on track to success and bounce back when they have failures. They need to be adaptable. Sometimes people with ADHD can be really rigid in their thinking. So you have to be able to go through changes and pivot when you're an entrepreneur. And, you have to be able to do that, or your competitors are going to pass you by. And along with that, being able to learn from failure instead of just going, I failed, I'm going to give up, being able to bounce back, navigate challenges and learn from it. One thing that I learned is to have an abundance mindset, going from scarcity to abundance. And, you've probably heard that, but when you think there's only a certain number of people out there and my competitors are getting them all. That's scarcity. There's a gajillion people out there. There's plenty for everybody. There's plenty of money to be made. We're not going to run out. That kind of thing. That it helps you to kind of let go a little bit and to be more grateful. And then I think too, just to go from kind of being a all by myself person to networking and being part of community. I don't think entrepreneurs that try to do it without a community do very well. They might initially, but without that collaboration, they really struggle. So those are just a few kind of shifts that I think need to happen.
Yeah, those are definitely all super great mindset shifts. So, kind of just transitioning to you personally, could you share a personal story of your own journey with ADHD and how it's, influenced your coaching?
Well, yes, I'm old, so I won't tell you my whole life story, but uh, yeah, I was diagnosed as an adult. So for many years, I lived with undiagnosed ADHD and I had all the symptoms. I mean, I was all over the place. I remember one time I had 3 part-time jobs. I never even knew where I was supposed to be when, and I would forget things, couldn't meet deadlines. I was rushed. I was unorganized. I had piles of paper everywhere, unfinished projects. I switched jobs all the time. I got married late in life because I was afraid of commitment. I, moved all the time because I would get bored, and I could just go on. I had every symptom. And of course, I just worked really hard and compensated. I was smart. And so it was like that duck on the water. They looked calm, but underneath I was just going crazy, paddling my feet. And so once I figured out that I had ADHD and really began kind of through trial and error, figuring out what worked, what doesn't, and how to make it work, I'm not exaggerating, I went from chaos to having a successful career as a counselor and teacher. I just retired. And so that's the longest I've done anything in my life was that career. And I was able to stick with it and be successful and move up and take leadership positions. Married the love of my life. I'm actually a grandma now. I didn't just get that one master's degree. I actually got 2 master's degrees, all with ADHD. And I say that not to brag or anything, but just to say, this is what's possible. And this is what I love to help people with. And I can save people all those years of trial and error that I went through trying to figure it all out, Googling and piecing together things because I've got this system and all you got to do is just follow the steps. So it's really a joy for me to help other people. I really don't think anyone needs to suffer like I did for so many years just the stress was always there and it's totally different now. So there's a lot more details I could throw in there, but that's kind of it.
Yeah, well, that's an incredible story, Sydney. So, just kind of jumping off, how did you kind of transition from teaching to starting this coaching business and kind of taking the leap of faith and starting something completely new?
Well, I started a travel blog right before the pandemic, and I still have that, but of course, people stopped traveling. And during that time, I started, like a lot of people, spending more time online and discovered different people doing online businesses. And I'd always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. Even when I was a little kid, painted barrettes back in the day, that used to be popular. And I would paint these little designs on these hair barrettes and I would put them on a little ribbon and take them to hairdressers. And they had like a number next to each pattern and I would get them to take orders for me and I'd go home and I'd paint them and I'd go back and they'd get the money. So, I've always kind of had that in me. And so I really wanted to do something where I felt like I was more in control of my own time. And I don't mind working hard, but I got tired of, having I gotta be in my classroom when the bell rings. I don't have time to go to the bathroom because I got all these kids in here. There's just so many things that people don't think about with teachers. And I just was ready for something different. And so I actually took some money out of retirement and joined a business coaching program myself and learned how to start a business. And I knew that I would be a good coach because of my background. And I think that it's good that I did that because now I understand the fear people feel when I ask them to join my coaching program and plunk down some money, and they're like, "What?" And I said, "Well, I understand because I did it for a business coaching program, and it was totally worth it." But I was just as scared, So I think that that's another reason I like working with people who are willing to invest in themselves because they're a little bit of a daredevil. And so there's a lot more to it, but that's kind of what started it. That curiosity, knowing that I didn't want to teach forever, that coaching was something I could do as I got into retirement age, and I could still be teaching people. It's just I was ready to work with adults.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So, what advice would you give to our listeners who may be struggling with ADHD or know someone who is?
I would say the biggest thing is don't try to figure it out on your own. And I'm not saying you need to hire me as a coach, but I have a free Facebook group. You could join that. You could read books. You could join other support groups or go. Some therapists are really good with helping people with ADHD, but I would learn everything that you can about it and get support. Hang around people who get you. Doesn't mean those are the only people you hang around, but if you get fidgety during a meeting and you're with people who understand you, then you don't have to worry. You can just fidget. Do you know what I mean? So it's just sometimes refreshing to be around like-minded people who understand your ADHD and don't shame you for it or make you feel inadequate in any way. So that would be the big thing, and I would say just to be encouraged because there are so many successful people with ADHD. Is it easy? No, it's not. There's no get rich quick path to entrepreneurship or any other profession that you choose. It's not easy. If there are any teachers listening, I just created a course just for teachers to help them get organized, doing all the things other than teaching that they have you do. So any job that you pick, it's difficult with ADHD, but it's worth it once you figure out how to work with your brain and not try to fight against it. So that would be one piece of advice anyway.
That's great advice. So, what are your future plans and goals with Cindy Baker Coaching?
Yeah, well, I just retired from teaching, so that frees me up to do things like this where I can be on podcasts. I am doing a lot more speaking, virtual, and hopefully soon physical stages. And I'm writing a book. Don't know when it'll come out because it's slow going, but it's going. And I'm just hoping to expand. I am going to, like I said, add more business tips into my coaching program because there are so many people with ADHD that are entrepreneurs. And, what they'll do is they'll join a business coaching program and they learn all these things, but they don't have the productivity tips or the time management or the organization to go through the business coaching program properly. So it's helpful to have both, really. And so I'm going to add that and just hopefully reach more people and eventually hire a team and just grow the business.
That's exciting stuff. So, as we approach the end of our conversation, what is one message that you want our listeners to take away from our conversation?
Well, I kind of hinted at it before, but if you have ADHD, you're awesome. Don't wish you didn't have it or try to be like everybody else. The world needs you and your unique gifts that only your unique brain wiring can offer. The trick is you've got to figure out how to work with it. But whatever your dream is, don't think that you can't reach it because of your ADHD. Your ADHD does not have to hold you back. So that would be my message.
Yeah, that's a great message. And how can our listeners find out more about you and your work?
Well, I have a free Facebook group. It has a long name, so I'll just let you put the link in. They can email me at Cindy at Cindy Baker Coaching. I have a website, cindybakercoaching.com. And I did want to let your listeners know that I have an upcoming workshop that's really popular. Let me see what the date is. I think it's the 13th. Yes, August 13th, which is Tuesday, next Tuesday, from 9 a.m. to noon Central Time. Now that sounds like a long time, but it's live, interactive. You get a workbook that you can keep, and we talk on Zoom. You talk with each other, you talk with me. We go through these exercises. There's breaks where you can get up, walk around, go get water, or whatever. So the time just goes really fast, but it's called Distraction to Action. And it's all about scheduling according to your values instead of what other people think you should be doing, or what the urgent things that come up, how to hack back specific distractions, and basically just how to create a blueprint specifically to your situation so that you're not spinning your wheels staying distracted, but you're actually taking purposeful action in your life and in your business. It's a really good workshop. So I hope some of your listeners, in fact, if they jump in now, there's just an early bird price of $47. So the workbook itself is probably worth that. So it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Thank you so much, Cindy, for joining us today. It was really inspiring hearing about your story and all of your great advice. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to this week's episode of the Vibrant Guide podcast. I will